Okay, so how many people have heard about capture and sequestration before coming here? Is this the first time for somebody? You. So this is really, most people kind of heard about it in general, but a little maybe new for a couple people. So really it's pretty simple. What we're talking about in terms of sequestration is you capture CO2 from some facility. That could be a power plant, it could be a cement plant, could be an ethanol plant, could be a pulp and paper mill, something like that. Capture that CO2, goes down a pipeline, goes to a sequestration site where we've got one or more injection wells, and that CO2 then gets pumped into the subsurface and flows out into a reservoir. Now, this is far below where any potable water would exist. So this is all very salty, very nasty water that's present at these depths. Well below 2,000 feet is about the minimum that we think about working with on sequestration projects. At those depths and so temperatures and pressures, we cross the critical point for CO2 in the phase diagram. I'm sure the engineers here are still familiar with these phase diagrams. Critical point for CO2 is 31 degrees C and about 1,071 psi. So once we're at that point, then we're in a single phase system, so supercritical CO2 in the subsurface. And then what happens over time as that CO2 is in a different reservoir depends upon the type of rock that we're looking at. Be it a coal, unminable coal seam, a depleted oil or gas reservoir, a typical kind of sedimentary rock, a sandstone or a carbonate, or a basalt, which is what we have here in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to talk a little bit more about sequestration and basalts here in just a minute. Okay, so you've heard my sort of 10-minute elevator speech about sequestration. So let's say CAP. You've heard this and you decide that I'm going to save the world and I'm going to do a sequestration project. All right? So without kind of getting into very site-specific kind of things, which we're going to talk about in a little bit later, what are some of the structural kind of barriers that you've got to overcome in order to get your project off the ground? What are these sort of high-level things that you've got to deal with? First off.
Oh, money.
Okay, money, very good. Engineers, we got to worry about that, yeah? We got to worry about money. So money from a perspective of what? What is it about sort of CO2 right now in terms of financial issues? Am I going to get paid to do that?
I would hope so.
I would too, but how would you do that right now, right? How would you do that? Because why?
We don't have any carbon credits.
Yeah, there's no, there isn't really any mechanism, right, for you to do that. Okay, financial though. Now what else financially? Now to get the CO2, so say, okay, Cap, you've got an in with Central Premix, for example, right here. And they're making cement, and so you want to capture their CO2. And great, it's a super project. But you're going to tell Central Premix what? To get the CO2 from their system, it's going to...
You're going to have to make some changes to your...
process, and it may cost... Yeah, it may cost you to actually get that CO2 so I can do a sequestration system. So capture, a pipeline, monitoring, you got some wells that you got to drill. So yeah, so there's some cost.
Might be some long-term, putting it down in the ground.
Yeah.
Long-term monitoring.
Monitoring, yes. There's cost there, but what else though?
Permitting.
Permitting. Okay, who's done this? Right? Who's done this? Nobody. So you have there's no, permitting. How do you permit these things?
I assume you also have to worry about what concerns you have, what happens bad that you hadn't thought about ahead of time.
Liability. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Actually very good. Very good. Okay, so let's recap on CAP's sequestration project. These are the barriers. So there's nothing national in terms of cutting emissions from the cement plant. They can go on emitting CO2 and there's no problem, right? So that's a problem. As we said, we can't monetize the CO2 storage. There's nothing really to go out to market to do that. It's going to cost your partner money to capture that CO2 and do the sequestration and monitoring. Permitting, nobody's done it, so you've got an issue to go through with that. We didn't talk about this, but where are you going to store it? So you need a landowner. A landowner is going to have to cooperate with you, that you access, be able to store, and not really rake you over the coals for storage fees. And what's the last part of this? Okay, engineers, here we are. We're trying to solve a problem, right, about climate change, but we've got this issue, don't we? There's a large segment of the population that thinks, well, this isn't a problem. And even if it is, humans aren't the cause, even though it's really easy to prove that that's not the case. Well, that's the end of my seminar today on sequestration. I hope you've enjoyed that. Yeah. So, everybody thought they were going to get out of here because we're done, right? This looks almost undoable, but there are some solutions, yeah? All right, so what do we do? Well, on a regional basis, there are some state-level incentives. So here in the Pacific Northwest and kind of the western U.S., there's the Western Climate Initiative, and so there's state-level incentives to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So we can take advantage of that. In terms of monetizing, think about this in a little bit different way. There's a possibility to introduce some upgrades on the plant. So CAP, your cement plant, maybe we can put a new boiler in there that would lower the amount of natural gas that they're using, so reduce their costs, improve efficiency, and so then pay for the cost and energy requirements to do CO2 capture. And because all these other barriers we're talking about, there's a lot of federal funding that's out there that we can leverage to get these projects off the ground. So you need to be looking at those funding opportunity announcements, CAP, when you want to do your sequestration project. In terms of regulations, there are some draft regulations in terms of how to permit sequestration projects that are at the federal level, so EPA is doing that. But one example, so this state, so Washington State, they codified, UAC means Underground Ingestion Control, they codified the rules to do sequestration projects. So we have a path forward in some locations to permit your project, and so central premix, that should work out pretty good. In terms of indemnification, there are a couple of companies that are out there that are offering insurance to do CCS projects. We'll touch on those again. So you have a chance to get some insurance and worry about and take care of that indemnification issue. And this last issue about got a segment of the population that doesn't believe it, well, we got to get out here and do some more seminars, and we need maybe a few more people too. But yeah, we got to. So we have to just get out there and really get the underlying sort of science about what's going on here, out in the public domain.